Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Assemblyman Jake Blumencranz, and I proudly represent the 15th Assembly District, which covers portions of Nassau County on Long Island. Nearly 6 months ago, many of you may not have heard the name Peanut the Squirrel. While followed by millions, it wasn't until a team of agents descended upon an animal sanctuary, raided, confiscated, and euthanized Peanut that he became a truly global figure. His death stopped people in their tracks, from the President of the United States to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, to celebrities, to everyday New Yorkers. Animal lovers around the world were all stunned when this internet-famous squirrel named Peanut, who had brought joy to millions, and his gentle raccoon friend Fred were ripped from their sanctuary and killed by the state of New York. No threat to public safety, no hearing, no warning, no veterinarian review, just a heartless protocol executed without compassion in the name of policy. And today, it is policy, real, human, heart-driven policy, that will be carried out to bring Peanut's legacy forward. They were not dangerous. They were not sick. They were not wild threats roaming the streets. They were rescues, loved, nurtured, and safe. And at the hands of our own government, they were killed. The Department of Environmental Conservation told us time and time again, we followed the rules. They said it until now, because after months of pressure, after letters, after rallies, after heartbreak and outrage, they finally admitted that they were wrong. They said that they reviewed their actions and that they improved their protocols, that they understand the distress and that they can do better. But here is the cold, hard truth. It is too little, too late. Words don't save Peanut and Fred, and words won't save the next animal or the next family unless we change the law. That is why today I have introduced Assembly Bill 7388, Peanut's Law, the Humane Animal Protection Act, because compassion should not be controversial, and animal welfare should never be a partisan issue. Imagine being the Longo family, watching helplessly as their animals who they've cared for slept in their blankets, who ate from their hands and who were a part of their family, were forced and taken away. Imagine the terror that those animals felt, and imagine the silence on Peanut's Freedom Farm Animal Sanctuary that night and every night since. That pain, that heartbreak, that injustice, that is what brought us here today. Peanut and Fred did not die because they were dangerous. They died because the state's system is broken, because the people in charge chose red tape over reason, and they chose enforcement over empathy. But we are here to say never again. This bill gives sanctuaries the respect they deserve. It gives animals time and dignity and a fighting chance. And it gives families hope and a voice. It mandates a 72-hour pause before euthanizing any sanctuary animal. And it creates an appeals process. And it puts licensed veterinarians, not bureaucrats, at the heart of life and death decisions made by government. And it finally brings transparency to a system that has operated in the shadows for far too long. Let me be crystal clear. This bill strengthens animal rights. This bill strengthens public safety and humanity. And I am proud to say we are not in this alone. I am joined by many of the co-sponsors and by my friend and partner in the Senate, Jessica Scarcetta-Spanton. And she's a leading voice in the charge alongside us. Republican and Democrat, suburban and urban, upstate and downstate, we are united in our belief that animals, like people, deserve better. Let us talk about the Longo family, the heart behind this bill. They didn't move to Pine City to run a political movement. They moved to start a sanctuary in a community that desperately needed one. They opened their hearts and their home to rescue animals who had nowhere else to go. And they lost Peanut and Fred, and they didn't just mourn. They rose, they fought, and they turned tragedy into purpose. To every animal advocate, to every sanctuary leader, to every New Yorker who looked into the eyes of an animal and saw life, and saw love, and saw hope, this is your moment. I want you to know something. If you're angry, this bill gives you a place to go. If you're tired of feeling helpless, this bill gives you power to do more. And if you believe New York can do more, this bill is your chance to join us in making history. We don't need another task force. We don't need another bureaucratic position, and we don't need another press release from DEC. We need Peanut's Law, the Humane Animal Protection Act, because without it, we are just waiting for the next tragedy, and I refuse to stand by and watch that happen. Governor Hochul has been radio silent, but the people of New York, they have been loud and clear. They want justice, they want change, and they want leadership that listens, not just when it's convenient, but when it really counts. Let us be that leadership here today. Let the Capitol echo not with politics, but with purpose. And let us pass Peanut's Law and speak for those who cannot speak for themselves. Let us make New York a sanctuary for compassion. Thank you, and may we never stop fighting for what is right. I'd now like to introduce you to a colleague of mine in the Assembly, the ranking member on the Assembly Environmental Conservation Committee and a co-sponsor here on Peanut's Law, Assemblyman Matt Simpson, to give us a few words.
Well, thank you, and thank you all for being here today. When you think back to the beginning of this, did you ever think that you would ever see a circumstance where you have a couple, who are there to rehabilitate wildlife, animals, who care enough to bring these animals into their home, only to have the New York State agency come, raid their premises, take their animals, and later euthanize them without any due process whatsoever. No accountability, no transparency, no answering the questions of those that were taking care of these animals. It's just amazing that here we are in 2025, that we have to stand here and stand up for animals, that we haven't solved this problem, that we've come to a point where we have an agency that goes in, takes the animal without any due process, no recourse, and euthanizes them. What does that say to the thousands of people that are there, thankfully, many of them volunteering, not doing this for a money-making enterprise, but there because they're compassionate, they care about our environment, they care about our animals and other creatures that are there. I wholeheartedly support this bill. You've heard DEC put out a press release, and they're modifying their procedures. We need to go further. We need to mandate that they modify their procedures along the lines of the provisions of this bill. We cannot leave it to DEC or another tragedy down the road where we're in the same place again, talking about animal rights, doing the right thing. We have so many other things to be dealing with. Animal rights is not a partisan issue here in Albany. It's something we all stand for. We're going to continue to fight for. I wholeheartedly stand for this bill, and I want to thank my colleague for drafting it and bringing it forward. Thank you.
Before we move on to the next guest, I just want to briefly read a statement from our colleague in the Senate who's carrying the legislation, Jessica Scarcella-Spanton. She said, "Peanut the squirrel story exposed the archaic protocols currently in place in New York State that led to the tragic death of a healthy, innocent animal. Peanuts Law is a call to end overreach by state agencies and to protect the sanctuaries that exist to take care of our state's animals. This legislation brings much-needed transparency and accountability to how animal sanctuaries and agencies are categorized and operate, allowing them to focus on the important work of rescuing and caring for our wildlife in need. Next, I'd like to introduce Mark and Daniela Longo to say a few words. Thank you.
I just want to say thank you to Jake Blumencranz and the team standing behind me for all of the love and support that they've showed me and my family since this tragic day on October 30th of 2024. Never in my life did I ever think I'd be doing a press conference at the Albany state office. I sit here trying not to cry, but passing this law will be a movement to make sure that animal rights are not overlooked anymore. My jacket and my animal shouldn't have the same rights anymore, and that's what we're here to stand for. As Mr. Blumencranz stated, this is a movement. We're waiting for answers still from the DEC, and hopefully we get the right ones. After going through this for the last 6 months, we've been nothing but crying, but we have just a big movement. Peanuts Freedom Farm will be the legacy of Peanut and Fred. We have over 350 animals that we have rescued from kill pens and slaughter auctions and out of neglected cases, and that will fulfill Peanut and Fred's legacy moving forward. So please, as we continue this movement, take a look at Peanuts Law. This is something that we need as a community, as a state, and as a government. We need to make changes, and we need to act fast. These tragedies cannot happen again. I just want to say thank you to my wife, Daniela, who has been my rock through this entire thing. Sitting in the corner of my driveway for 5 hours as 12 agents raided my home. I've never felt the opposite side of the law before. I've been a law-abiding citizen. I've never gotten in trouble before. To have 12 people raid my house and go through my belongings and make me feel like a criminal is something that I will never forget. But I'm not going to sit here and play victim. I loved those animals to death. And today is a day that we push forward to make sure that this tragedy never happens again. So thank you for your time.
Next, I'd like to invite to say a few words the Capo Bianco family here from Smithtown in Long Island. They came up here to stand with Peanuts Freedom Farm Animal Sanctuary and fight for what's right here today.
Hi. I just want to say I am a New York State licensed rehabilitator. I am a retired New York City police officer. What happened to Mark and Danny was the biggest nightmare that I was worried about for 12 years because I too had a squirrel and I took care of it. Mark kept Peanut alive for almost 8 years. Dealing with squirrels on a daily basis that I do, that animal was healthy and he was happy. The crime that was done to them didn't fit, the punishment that was done to them did not fit the crime. And I just pray that you guys pass this bill, because this is a horrible thing for him to deal with. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your words, Barbara. Next, I'd like to invite Maria Portelli, a practicing animal rights attorney and member of the New York State Bar Association's Committee on Animals and the Law, and its legislation subcommittee, who will provide a perspective on Peanuts Law and the need for the changes to our animal laws. Maria?
Good afternoon, everyone. Peanuts Law is a vital and necessary piece of legislation. It would ensure humane treatment of animals in sanctuaries, enhancing animal rights, and safeguarding public safety as well. Some of the key points in the law that are important to note is that there would be a 72-hour waiting period before euthanizing any sanctuary animal. So that would allow owners, such as the Longos, their due process. They'll have time to appeal, they'll have time to seek veterinary care, which they were unable to do because the DEC stormed their property. The law would also enact a dedicated DEC review board of experts, which would evaluate appeals within 48 hours, so that each case would be addressed immediately. There would also be clear immediate risk criteria where the animal would only be euthanized during the waiting period if a licensed veterinarian confirms that there's immediate risk to humans and the public, which, of course, Peanut was not. And transparent reporting. The DEC would be required to publish quarterly reports on animal seizures and released their testing results within 7 days of euthanization if they deemed there was an immediate risk and the animal had to be euthanized. Most importantly, Peanut's law would define animal sanctuaries as registered, tax-identified entities upholding their rights. So thank you all for your time. We really need this law to make sure that Peanut and Fred did not die in vain and that similar tragedies like this can be avoided. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone for being present and supporting this important piece of legislation. I just want everyone to say it together. We need to pass Peanut's law now. Now, I'd like to open it up to any questions from the press. Anyone who has any questions regarding the legislation? With the bill?
His birthday.
Oh, yes, and it is also Mark's birthday, so very happy birthday to Mark. Let's pass it for his birthday.
Yeah, curious about, so it's bipartisan. The senator make it? Or?
Unfortunately, due to a committee conflict at this time that worked, she couldn't be here, but she's very much so in support of the legislation. She carries it in the Senate, and she looks forward to continuing the fight with us as we continue to go through the process.
How about, so any other members of the majority, is she the only one so far? Do you see that actually being?
We have quite a few members of the majority on the piece of legislation, I believe in both houses.
Are you aware of any other similar efforts to this one going back over the years to address this similar issue?
Sorry, can you repeat the beginning of your question?
Are you aware of any other similar efforts over the years going back to address this, or is this a totally new effort?
It's my understanding that there hasn't been an effort to solidify and codify many of the changes the way we are doing it here, creating that due process system for individuals. But we do hear from many people, especially since we launched this campaign across the state, who fell victim to a system that seemingly leaves them behind and doesn't provide them the justice they deserve. And many of our sanctuaries are just trying to get by and save as many animals as they can, and dealing with the regulations and red tape surrounding being an animal sanctuary oftentimes becomes a chokehold around them that prevents them from saving as many animals as they can.
For Mr. Longo, I was wondering, so will your care of Peanut qualify your group as a wildlife sanctuary? The DEC's definition says that they cannot use the animal for any type of entertainment, recreational, or commercial purpose. Do you think that would disqualify your organization, or would have disqualified your organization for meeting that definition?
No, ma'am. Peanut was just the face of it. We wanted it to be the legacy of Peanut. We had Peanut for 8 years, and at no point did anybody say anything about Peanut. In fact, there are multiple Instagram famous quote-unquote wildlife animals who do live in the New York State, who did not get 12 people to invade their privacy and raid their home and kill their animals. So if we're going to make a law, we got to make sure that everybody is going to uphold that same law. I was targeted. This is a clear overreach of government. And, we started this organization not as a wildlife sanctuary. My wife and I devoted our time and efforts to go out and take the time to go to slaughter auctions, raise money and awareness of what's going on in the animal community, and ultimately try to save as many animals as possible using Peanut's name. So regardless of whether or not you want to use Peanut or not, I still think our mission and what we've been representing is something that needs to be looked at. And rules and procedures need to be changed in order for more people to do what we're doing.
And I'd just like to add, we do make some adjustments to the definition of a sanctuary to meet the needs of modern times when it comes to the ways in which online ecosystems allow for communities or sanctuaries to promote and look for crowdfunding and sourcing to make sure that they can feed as many animals as possible, to make sure they can fundraise for their not-for-profits in any way they can, because we do live in a different economy when the law was written, and I think it's worth adjusting.
Oh, sorry, one more. Can you provide an update on your plans for a lawsuit? I know you've said that you filed a claim, or I don't know, a notice of claims, but has there been any formal lawsuit filed since then?
Not as of yet, but we are looking forward into it. Unfortunately, my attorney, Nora Marino, couldn't make it today, but you will see an update from us in the near future.
Is this, from your perspective, do you think this is DEC overreach, or do you think they follow the law and the law is lacking from your perspective?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think the law was a little unclear as to how much latitude they had. I think anyone who sees the situation sees it as egregious. The way that they went about their seizure, the way the euthanization took place, the information that many have seen come out since the incident, even the admitting documentation that they did not necessarily do things the correct way in their letters since the incident, show that they maybe didn't, in their opinions, break any protocols, but they certainly want to see a change as well, because anyone sees the raid that we saw. I mean, other sanctuaries talk about it. This is their biggest nightmare, even when they're licensed, even when they're in a different situation than the Longos were. They didn't necessarily follow it to a T, in my opinion, but I also think that if we clarify exactly what they can and cannot do, incidents like this will not happen in the future.
Mark and Danny, can you just provide an update on what your life looks like now, 6 months later, without Peanut? And when was the last time you heard from the state, either the DEC or anybody else?
As far as hearing any statement from the DEC in regards to us, we have not received one since the tragic day of October 30th. I think a lot of people think that I'm looking for fame and fortune. This is a nightmare. I have to tell a tragedy every single day. There are trauma. I don't like to live in my home anymore. When you're staring down 9 people with weapons and 12 people going through your home and just tearing it apart, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth. There's not a day that goes by that I don't cry. I'm fighting not crying now. I lost my best friend, and I got my privacy just taken away from me in the moment's notice. I don't think there should have been 12 agents that needed to come take a squirrel and a raccoon, but who am I? I didn't pose a threat, but I was treated as so. And it's just an unfortunate tragedy that we hope never happens again.
Any more questions? No? Thank you all very much for coming today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.